Hi there, you're watching the Gardens and Graveyards channel. My name is Charisma and today we are in the garden. We're in the backyard and I just have a couple of small projects that I want to get done. We were working in the garden for quite a while this morning, sans video. It was really fun to just get out there without worrying about angles and explanations or anything like that. We basically just cut down a whole bunch of perennials that are, melting away in the fall weather. It is in the upper 30s today, which is a little cooler than we're used to here, but or I should say our nights are in the upper 30s. It's not 30 now. I'd be wearing gloves. I probably wouldn't be out here. It's closer to like 49, 50 today. But there's just a few more tasks that I wanted to get done for winter prep. And one of those things is to cut down these Cannas and the purple variety as well. Whereas they still look okay. I'll show you a little bit closer. They're starting to get browned on the edges, and I know that in the next week or so they'll be totally done. In our temperate climate, it's hard to really tell because we never get a hard killing frost, so I always just take advantage of dry days in late fall to go ahead and cut down my perennials, because I know that the plant, they want to photosynthesize as much as possible. They also need to be protected from really heavy rains and not have a bunch of rain go down into their roots or into their into the bulb through the stems of their flowers or their foliage. I feel like I have something on my eye. Sorry. And then the other thing that I have to do today is dig up some dahlias. Now in my garden, I do not need to dig up dahlias, although I'll link it below. But last year I dug up all my dahlias, divided them, and replanted them the following spring, and that is only because I knew that a lot of those dahlias were getting really big and they needed to be divided. But I don't get cold enough here to have any reason to dig up my dahlias yearly. The dahlias that I want to pull up this year are in my theme garden, and they're in a brand new bed that is mostly like branches and straw with some soil. It has settled tremendously, and there's big pockets that need to kind of get shoved down again, and I don't want to lose my dahlias in that bed, so I'm going to pull them all up and then we can work on the bed through the winter, and then in the spring I could plant those dahlias back in there along with some more. Yeah, and then the one other thing that I want to try to get done today on this video is cutting my hellebores, and I'm not going to be cutting them down. I'm just going to be removing the leaves so that the flowers can really shine, because this is the time of year they start coming up out of the ground and looking beautiful for the next few months. They're also called Christmas roses or Lenten roses, and that's because they bloom during those times of year. So but for today I just want to get this little backyard task, these 3 backyard tasks done, so that I'm ready for the front yard tasks at another time. So let's get to it. Okay, so these are the cannas that I dug up from the moon garden right over here early in the spring. They came up pretty good in their containers, and this has been sitting here like this for like 2 months. They're not gonna actually bloom, I don't think. It's really tempting to leave them here until they totally melt. Like, this is all new growth, but the purple ones are definitely ready to be taken down. So I think I'm just gonna take down the purple ones today and leave these for just a tiny bit longer and see if this week of dry weather allows it to bloom, or allows these ones to bloom. So these are called banana cannas, or canna bananas. Banana cannas. I don't know why, but they're just a canna lily, and they're really easy. I don't have to dig these up either. They're in pots, but if they were in the ground, I could leave them in the ground as well. And all I do is go down to the base of the plant and cut it at the soil surface. You can see how these leaves are starting to, I don't know, people call it melting, but it's just like they're getting gross and slimy and they're done. So quick and easy, and that's all I have to do. I might come by and put a little bit of mulch, pile it on top of those exposed stems just to protect it a little bit. But that's all I have to do for that task. All right, so the next thing I'm gonna do is, you can see how I have some blossoms here. These are a little bit older than the fresh ones that'll come up, but I'm gonna remove all of the leaves from this hellebore and the two right behind there. You can see how there's like old black tips, and these are just old leaves, and they're ready to do their bloom thing and then flush out new growth. There's just no reason to have that old yucky looking foliage there anymore. I may as well take out the old blooms too. All right, let's move over here. May as well take out the old blossoms of the kaffir lilies as well. Some of these leaves get absolutely huge. So I like to leave just a few leaves, especially if they're not blooming yet, so I remember where to find them. And I can see that they've started to naturalize, which is really exciting to me. So this leaf right here is on a separate plant by itself, so I'm actually going to leave it alone. Looks like there's might be two. Let's see. We have bindweed all in this bed that we're constantly battling. So I'll pick up my little pile right here and move down and see if there's any others to prune. Okay, so I just have one more to do, and it's very small. All right, now let's go dig up some dahlias. Okay, so this is the raised bed that I was talking about. I will also make sure that I have it linked below how we made this raised bed, but yeah, so let me show you what this looks like. You might be able to tell, it's kind of difficult, but you could definitely see the difference between the top of the bed and the soil line is about 6 inches down, and it was totally full when we planted this up this summer. And here you could see how there's branches in underneath the soil. These aren't just laying on here. There's hundreds of twigs like this size that are pretty much the length of the bed. But then the soil, like you could see my shovel just goes all the way down in there. So the soil is finding all these pockets to sift down in there as these break down and get softer and all the things they're supposed to do. But you could see if I had a dahlia here, that tuber is completely lost on the bottom now. So I think I had one in this area, so I'm gonna have to root around a little bit, and the rest of them should be pretty easy because they still have all the foliage. And I'm just going to dig up the tuber and then cut off the foliage so I can, make sure that I have all the ones that I'm looking for. And then I'm actually going to just lay the tubers in these two flats and let them dry in my garage for a few days before I store them away. But again, you can reference the link below and see how I do that entire process with dahlias when I did that last year. But for today, we're just gonna dig them out and get them in the garage. So these tubers got put in here this last spring. This was the mother tuber, just this one potato sized. It wasn't this big. It was probably closer to this size. No, it was probably closer to this size here. And it created all these babies, which each of these have the potential of being a whole new plant. So you could see those holes all the way down in there. But I do have a artichoke right here that I hopefully get to save. No. At this point, all I'm gonna do is cut the plants off of the tubers and let all this moist soil dry right on the tubers. And then I'll knock all the soil that I can get off of there before I put them in storage. If these were planted in the landscape, the soil might be caked on there even more, and I would actually take my hose and rinse it off. But this is really loose, so I know that once it's dry, I'll be able to just shake it off. It doesn't need the plant on there anymore though. So we just cut it all the way down on the crown like this. Ta-da! And then I'll just store this guy. You'll see that this tuber is split. Probably got a shovel in it earlier this year. I'm just gonna throw that out. It would probably harbor disease if I left it. Maybe not, it might be cured enough since it's been under the ground like that, but it's just better practice to get rid of anything that looks like that. It amazes me that each one of these were either two, like at most two little tubers conjoined and made all these little babies, but most of them were just single tubers. Like this one is holding on to so much soil. I would be almost tempted to rinse it off. But I think I'm just gonna see how it goes in the garage. I don't think I've ever seen such a root system on a tuber mouse like that. It's pretty wild. So you might notice that I just mixed them all up and I didn't leave any tags with them. And that's just because I know that I'm planting all of these same exact tubers in that bed, and they're all white, dark burgundy, or bright red. And that's the theme of this garden. And I don't mind that they're all mixed up. They don't need to be in like nice, neat rows of all white, all red, and all burgundy. I prefer them mixed up, actually. So in this case, I didn't, make sure that each label went with each tuber. But if you were concerned about that and you didn't want to just totally random, you would want to make sure that when you pull your tuber out that you keep your label with that tuber. Otherwise, there's no way to tell which ones they are. I will probably remember for a short while that this is the Lady Liberty, only because I am absolutely amazed at the amount of tubers that she grew in one season. And I only had one Lady Liberty in there, but the rest of them, who knows which ones they are. But I will keep the tags. So I have the Lady Liberty tag. I have the Ivanetti tag. And then Lights Out. And what is the other one? Black Satin. And that's the same. I'm not seeing the one for my red one. Well, anyway, I have all the tags there so I can put them back out once they start blooming next year, or I could just put them like in the corner and remember like, oh yeah, those dahlias are in there. So yeah, that's gonna be it for today. I think yeah, I'll just turn the camera around, show you exactly what we got done. But really simple and easy, and just another thing that I could check off my to-do list as we're getting closer and closer to winter. And thanks again so much for hanging out with me while I gardened. It's been such a pleasure to bring you along in my gardening journey, and I just love all the community comments. So keep commenting, keep asking questions, keep following us, and share with anyone who you think might be interested, or if they're growing in a zone 9A but a super temperate climate. It's a very unique situation because most 9 most zone 9s get very hot in the summertime, and we do not. So it's definitely a learning curve as far as that goes in our specific climate. So if they live on the coast or something like that, let us make sure that you share this with them. Maybe it could be helpful. Until the next time, keep celebrating life, and we'll see you in the next video. All right, so I wanted to show you what the bed looks like now. It's just almost completely empty except for the little artichoke there that didn't do so hot right in that area anyways. I haven't had really good luck with artichokes. I think I should try growing one in the front yard where it has a lot more sun. And that just might be what I have to do, because I might lose this one in this bed. So you can see what's happening here is I can stick my hand all the way in here because it just creates these big pockets of soil everywhere in here, and which is fine. That's totally expected. I think that what we're gonna do is we're just gonna leave this bed just like this for the winter. We may come out here every once in a while with a shovel and just sort of like shove the soil down and let it settle even further, and maybe even with our auger and try to break up some of the smaller twigs. And then in the spring we'll come in and fill it with more potting soil and more compost, and we'll probably have to do that for a couple of years as the soil builds up, much like we have done in this bed. This bed we didn't put sticks on the bottom, but we did fill it with straw first, and then it's been a couple of years of topping it off with soil and topping it off with compost and just continuing to add to it each year. And we're getting there. We're getting really close. I'm positive all the straw has broken down by now, and we probably won't have to add, you know, so many bags of soil and compost in the future. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what else happened today. And those two pots had the purple cannas in them, and I just cut them down and topped them with compost, and decided that I would leave those variegated cannas for just this week, just to see if this dry weather is going to be enough to open them up a little bit further. However, I really feel like it needs heat to get that flower to bloom, and we're not going to get any heat. Today is supposed to be the hottest day at 51 degrees at the peak of the heat today, and then it'll go down. So then in this bed underneath the maple tree, which you can see she's losing all of her leaves, we cut down the leaves off of that hellebore, and I'm so glad that I did, because you could actually see a couple of new blooms on there already, so that's really exciting. This variegated plant is also a hellebore, but this is its first year in the ground. We planted it in the spring, and I don't want to forget about it. I've never seen it bloom, and of course the variegated foliage is, you know, really beautiful, and I'm just not ready to cut it back. And then I have a big clump of a dark purple hellebore there, and then there's a small one right here, and then they've started to naturalize in this area. So I left a couple of leaves on the naturalized one, so I don't forget that there's more over there. I left some of the foliage on there just so that it can continue to photosynthesize until it gets some blooms on there. I do have a new hellebore right here, and it kind of struggled this year. It's right there. And I'm planning on redoing this bed completely this winter. We're putting in a new fence, so this whole thing is going to get kind of reworked. and I'm gonna definitely be moving that hellebore. And then we have one hellebore right there, and again, it's not blooming yet, so I just took off the leaves that looked the worst and left those there to hopefully photosynthesize and bring us more blooms. And that's it for today. Thanks again, and make sure that you like and subscribe, and we will see you soon.